Hi, how's everyone out there doing? This is Amy Hamilton, author of The Project Manager Life is a Project, as well as a consummate communicator, character traits of true professionals. This is 24 authors in 12 hours. We have just reached the halfway point, which is super exciting. And today's January 20th, which is Inauguration Day. Some of you have watched that. But I want to give people a break from the news cycle. There's so much news out there. And sometimes when we're watching the news, it can kind of weigh on us. And so books are a wonderful, wonderful way to escape. And I have Wendy Vogel here. Her website's across the bottom, wendyvogelbooks.com. She writes in a genre that's very original. It's very much a fantasy genre, but a lot of the information is based on real science and real information. So, Wendy, I would love for you to please talk a little bit about your books because I think that there's a lot of uniqueness to it that the audience is going to find really interesting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I am delighted to be here. I'm thrilled to power you through the halfway point, the hump day of your long day. I am a science fiction author. I am published with Future House Publishing, and my main series is the Horizon Ark. It starts with Horizon Alpha, which is a 3-book trilogy, and then continues with Horizon Beta and Horizon Delta. Now, Horizon refers to the Horizon Fleet. These are colony ships that are leaving doomed Earth, trying to find new places for humans to colonize. And each of them heads off in a different direction. And the Alpha ship is the first to land. And they made their calculations and did the trajectories and found themselves exactly where they intended to land, which is the planet Tau Ceti E, which is a real planet. Tau Ceti is a star in the constellation Cetus. It is known to have a planet in the Goldilocks zone, so not too hot, not too cold, could potentially support life. So that's where they go, and that's where they land. And unfortunately, it is a young planet, and when they aimed them there, nobody's thought to think what that might mean. And what it means is dinosaurs. So this is a survival story. The Horizon Alpha series is humans trying to survive on a dinosaur planet where they are the most delicious thing on the menu. So that is a 3-book series, and then proceed to the Beta ship, which finds itself on a planet of giant insects. And the story picks up after they've been there for a little while, long enough for humans to have forgotten who they are and basically become enslaved to the giant bugs who are their masters, hive insects, kind of like termite, scorpion sort of critters. It follows their fight for freedom. And we wrap up then with Horizon Delta, which is the final book in the series, which is out. So for those of you who say, I don't want to start a long sci-fi series until all the books are out there, because if I like it, I want to just rip through them and not have to wait, you are completely free to start the Horizon series because Horizon Delta is out. I'm going to show this cover because I just think it is the absolute coolest cover. Is that not a fantastically beautiful cover? My publisher does such a wonderful job. I absolutely adore them. Unfortunately, the Delta ship doesn't actually reach the planet they're headed for. They are stranded in space when they are rescued by a very, very, very alien species called the botanists. And so the Delta book wraps up the entire series. Any of the books can be read on their own. If read in order, there are certainly things you'll pick up from 1 to 2 to 3 part of the series. But you can pretty much start anywhere and figure out what's going on and have a young and intrepid hero to root for. So yeah, it's been super, super fun to work my way through that series, and the feedback has been fantastic.
So you have Alpha, Beta, Delta. What happened to Charlie? Or you just said I'm not doing that?
So the third ship is actually the Gamma ship, the Greek alphabet, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta. Okay. And yeah, Gamma ship didn't make it. So that was one of the things that was really important to me when I was writing this series. So in the series, the whole doomed Earth thing, basically they have about 80 years from the time that they realize that Mercury is wobbling in its orbit to the time that they realize Mercury is going to fall completely out of orbit and basically destroy the entire solar system. They have 80 years to get it together and build these colony ships to send them off. And that sounds like a lot of time, but when we're talking 80 years from now-ish, it's not a lot of time to figure out interstellar travel. So what was really important to me, one of the many things important to me in this series, is that these ships are garbage. They're the best we could cobble together, but they don't work very well. So Unfortunately, the Gamma ship doesn't even make it out of the solar system, and we always have a moment of silence to honor all those souls lost on the Gamma ship. And none of the other ships really work all that well either. There are things that go wrong with each of them that lead directly to the conflict in the series. Because realistically speaking, this is not a thing that we're going to do well on our very first try. They're not all going to get where they're supposed to be. And that was an important thing when I was writing it, is that we get at least the tiny bit of realism of, yeah, these ships aren't that great. I mean, they're going to maybe make it, but maybe not. I don't know. It's all we got.
Oh, I love this perspective from you, that you're just immediately like, oh, they might work, they might not. So
Yeah.
you come from a very scientific background, correct?
I do. Yes, I'm a veterinarian. And so that is the other thing that's really important to me in my series, is that the science make as much sense as it can possibly make. Now, we're talking about sci-fi here. So obviously there are, things that we accept in sci-fi. It is, sci-fi is modern technology taken to the nth degree. It's, looking at potential future trajectories that we are already on. Where could those things lead? So the dinosaurs in the Horizon Alpha world of Tau Ceti, they're not Earth dinosaurs because it's not Earth. So they are different. They're made up dinosaurs, but they're all based on characteristics that I have taken from Earth animals. So, we have the camouflaged ambush hunter, and we have the intelligent and communicative pack hunter, and, we have dinosaurs with venom. So all of them are taken from real biological Earth animals and the things that make them successful. Same thing with the beta, with the bugs and Horizon Beta. They're basically a mashup of scorpion and termite, and they follow hive termite rules, basically, with the hierarchies and the way those societies work in the hive mind. So yeah, that's very important to me. What I hate is when you're reading science fiction and you get to a point and go, oh, no, just no. Even given the things that we will accept in sci-fi, no, that just could never happen. Physics doesn't work like that. Science doesn't work like that. Mathematics doesn't work like that. So, given that we'll accept a certain amount, I think that the science pretty much works in the Horizon series, and that was important to me, especially because these are aimed at younger readers. These are accessible to a middle grade reader. There's nothing offensive for a middle grade audience. My heroes are all 15-year-old boys. So it was important to me that they not be led astray by science that is garbage. And that was really fun to put together.
So you said something really interesting there, and you said your readers are like 15-year-old boys, and I'm a big sci-fi fan. As a matter of fact, I'm rereading right now The Forever War. I'm not sure if you read that back in the day, but somebody said, oh, and so I took that and got it off the shelf, and well, the virtual Kindle bookshelf, but
yep, the easiest one to carry around.
Exactly. So it's super great to have those kinds of things that you can take a look at. And one of the things I wanted to think about sci-fi is, looking at first of all your pen name, which is not Wendy. What do you go by? DV Vogel?
My pen name is DW Vogel.
DW.
And that was actually a suggestion from my publisher. So my name is Wendy Vogel. I am female. And when we went to publish this, they said, yeah, we're not going to put your name on the front of these books because these books are aimed at boys, young men, and boys won't buy a book with a woman's name on a cover. Even if it's got a super cool dinosaur standing on the wreckage of a spaceship, if it's got a woman's name on the cover, they're much less likely to buy it. So most of the time when you see initials as author name, you can be pretty well assured that is a woman who's writing with a male audience in mind, because unfortunately that is just kind of how that goes. So they said, let's use initials. And I said, okay, cool. My middle name is Anne, so W.A. Vogel. And they said, no, we don't like that. Doesn't look good, doesn't sound good. Pick something else. Pick new initials. And I was like, okay, I will pick new initials. And I threw a couple of, choices out there, one of which was D.W. Vogel, which is the one that they liked and went with. And I'm a veterinarian. I'm a small animal practice veterinarian. And like many small animal practice veterinarians, we are a first name hospital. So I am Dr. Wendy in my hospital. I've been Dr. Wendy in my hospital for 24 years now. And so DW literally stands for Dr. Wendy. As lame as that is the story of the initials DW Vogel under which I write.
Now, I'm just wondering now if maybe you should have written as Dr. Wendy, but changed it to an E and made it your last name.
Could have been.
I
Right?
have too many thoughts right now. This is what happens when you are on your, what is this, 13th author of the day, right?
Exactly. Yeah, well, and that's what happens when
Renaming
we're
you,
authors
rebranding
together.
you.
We get great ideas. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. But the fun thing about science fiction and fantasy, speculative fiction in general, is that it really is ageless. These books are basically aimed at 12 to 15-year-old boys, but my most ardent fans generally are adult men, science fiction, mostly guys, because they see the dinosaur and they remember when they were dinosaur kids and they're like, this is awesome. I want to return to that place in their life when dinosaurs were everything to them. And so that's what one of the things that I love most about speculative fiction is it's really accessible to all ages. I mean, kids read adult sci-fi just as soon as they're ready to understand all the words, and adults can, go back and enjoy Narnia and, books that were originally aimed at children in the genre, and they enjoy them in a whole new way than they did when they read them when they were kids. So that's, I think, part of the beauty of the genre is the incredible accessibility that it has.
No, I think that's super important, and it's just interesting how the genre of sci-fi does tend to bend into that male kind of world, but you're a female author out there, and so it is interesting, the story about your initials, your name, how it's all had to change and transform in order for you to do your marketing.
Yep. And there's a ton of us out there. There are a lot of female sci-fi authors, female fantasy writers. One, J.K. Rowling. I mean, she went by J.K. for a reason, because Harry Potter was aimed at boys, and I'm certain that she and her publisher had the exact same conversation. We're not going to put your actual first name on there. You need to go with your initials, and that is what she did, and that's what we do. And there may or may not come a day that we will not have to do that, but for now, it's what we do, and it's okay if it gets books into the hands of the readers that they're aimed at. It's okay if it makes kids read, which ultimately is the goal of all writing for middle grade and YA. Get books into kids' hands.
I think it's really get books into anyone's hands, and so many of the discussions today go back into reading is so extraordinarily important for adults, for kids, for anyone. And right now, when people are in lockdown, I know people are stocking up on their lockdown books. And I do want to make the shameless plug that my books are available free for Kindle download all day. So please take a minute, download those, and hopefully you'll find them an enjoyable read. Very, very different than this genre. They're business fables. Like you, Wendy, I am the only female author I'm aware of in this genre right now. So it's somewhat interesting because, you see people like Patrick Lencioni, and, Matthew Kelly and other authors. And so when I started writing in that genre, I really considered, do I go with the initials? And I said, I really want to break into it as a woman and kind of pioneer a bit. But I did capitulate that for all my readings, it is done by a male. So if you download the audiobook, it's not me reading it. It's a guy with a really awesome, cool voice, not me.
Fantastic. Yeah, I got very, very, very lucky. The first Horizon Alpha is out on audiobook now. And my reader is just absolutely fantastic. He's a grown man. He's a 52-year-old man, but he's got the voice of a 15-year-old boy, and he just pulls it off perfectly. He captures the innocence and the wonder, and also the growth over the course of the book. So yeah, super, super important to have the appropriate voice for when you're choosing an audiobook author. Definitely. So
yeah, as somebody that you really just want to keep listening to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Something that when you're out for your run and you're listening to your audiobook as you do your daily jog, it makes you want to do one more mile because you want to hear one more chapter. That's the way they should go.
Great. And Wendy, we have your website up right now. Can you tell us what can people find when they go to wendyvogelbooks.com?
So all my books are there, obviously. I have a blog, which is frankly grossly underused. I had the highest of hopes when I set out and started to do the blog. There are some fun blog posts on there. If you look back a ways, a couple that I'm particularly proud of. But everything kind of turns to Facebook at this point, and now following my Facebook page is where you get the most up-to-date things. But Wendy Vogel Books is up to date with all of my books that are available, where you can find them. And then my own personal blog, which is just random thoughts on things. It's really, there's no theme at all to my blog. It's just stuff I was thinking about and thought I would write down at the time. But yeah, all of my publications are there, and the links to where you can buy all of my books, and because that's what an author website is for ultimately.
Okay, well, you also talked to me a little bit beforehand about your YouTube. Could you share that with this audience?
Yeah, so one of the really fun things that I'm doing right now, I'm involved with a group called Sweetie Cat Press, which is basically an author's promotion group. And they asked me to host a poetry reading site. So I have a YouTube channel, and it is called The Poetics. And if you search for Sweetie Cat Press Poetics, you'll find it very easily. And it's really, really fun. It is new and emerging poets from all around the world that submit to Sweetie Cat Press. And if they are chosen to be featured, then they send me the poems, and I read them aloud. And basically, I just sit here and read poetry. So if you're interested in poetry that might be some things, some authors that you would never otherwise have heard of, writing in all different genres of poetry, it's really fun. And it's been a tremendous honor to have these words in my mouth, to be the one that is entrusted to carry these words of poetry audibly to the world, because poetry, I think, really even more than books, is such a twofold art form. Poetry, when you look at it on the page, you have the beauty of how the words are formed on the page. It's completely different when you listen to it. And so I think that you can appreciate a poem in two very different ways by both looking at the poem, reading the poem on your own, and having the poem read to you. So that's the point of the Poetics. And it's been a tremendous honor and super, super fun to be allowed to read these poems, for some of which it's the first time that they've been performed aloud. So very much fun there.
I was just saying I miss good poetry and bad coffee and good poetry and going out in society and doing that. So this does not tie to your genre at all. How did you end up into this?
Not one bit. Not one bit. Honestly, I was raised in community theater. I met my husband doing community theater. So performing comes fairly natural to me. And so when the call was put out for someone to read this, I submitted my audition, and I was chosen. And it just seemed like it would be a really fun thing for me to do, and kind of a release from the, my job is somewhat high pressure. And honestly, writing books is somewhat high pressure. And the other avocation, I suppose, that I do is I'm also a board game designer. And that is somewhat high pressure because there's a lot that goes into board game design. If you're not a board gamer, that may not be a thing that you've ever really thought of. But that too is a high pressure world where you're putting something out there and, getting feedback on it and trying to make something that's going to be a great experience for whoever ends up, buying and enjoying it. So the ability to just sit back and quietly read beautiful poems is like it's a breath of easy air for me. There's no pressure there. It's just read the poems and make them beautiful. And it sort of re-energizes me then to go back and dive into the other things that I do.
No, that's really incredible. And you're such a Renaissance woman, and you just throw out there, and I do community theater, and I do this, and I do that. Oh, and in my free time, I save whales. And right. I mean,
the secret is no kids. The secret is we do not have children. So these are our children. My books are my children. My games are my children. Here, I'll show. This is one of my children. That's Janet. She's always with me whenever I'm on any kind of a Zoom call or any sort of a tele work. My Janet is there on my lap. So yeah, I mean, I have time to do these things, and this is what I need to be doing with my life. So this is where we are.
So this is Sugar.
Oh, hi, Sugar. How are you, Maltese?
He is a Maltese.
Hello.
And Sugar will not bark as long as he's sitting here. And so I think sometimes people can see me move around a little bit, and it's like, Sugar has to be comfortable, and then the whole world is comfortable.
And isn't that funny? Don't you wonder how often, like, when you're talking to somebody and you're having a Zoom meeting, or, whatever you're doing, and then all of a sudden, like from absolutely nowhere, they're like, "Hello, this is Janet," and they've been there the whole time, and you couldn't even see. But there's been a cat on my lap this entire time, just the one at the moment. There
No,
are
I've got 2 cats, and sometimes the one cat, Sugar's best buddy, Sprinkles, he loves to jump on top of Sugar, and then I have a dog and a cat on my lap at the same time.
awesome, fantastic.
So,
Yeah, it's just great. You always wonder, like, from here on down, what's going on down there. In many cases, it's a lap full of cat, and that's the best kind of lap to have.
Yeah, it is. And, it's interesting because I'm sure as a veterinarian, you're aware that, the pets are now becoming super dependent on us being home for those of us who shifted to telework.
Yeah, we're going to have some problems when the world stops burning down and people are able to go back to their offices, because I mean, a lot of pets that had separation anxiety issues before suddenly think that everything is wonderful. And so many people got new pets during this lockdown, which is wonderful. I mean, the shelters have really emptied during this, which is fantastic. But at some point, folks are going to have to go back to the office, maybe. And a lot of those dogs who thought you lived at home all the time now are suddenly going to wonder where you went all day. And now what am I supposed to do with myself? Well, I guess I'll just eat the couch, because that's what dogs left alone do at times. But, it's also going to be really interesting. And you, of course, in the business world, the paradigm, I think, is going to shift a lot. I think businesses have learned so much from this that, do we really need that big expensive building and all those desks and computers and chairs and phone lines and all those things? Maybe we don't, because people are pretty happy to work in their living rooms or, work in whatever space they have from home. So it's going to be very interesting to see, as things change, how the business world has changed. And, maybe telework really is going to take off now as companies are realizing, what, we can actually get just as much work done if people are not here standing around the water cooler and drinking coffee here. They can drink coffee at home and still be working. So I don't know. That'll be very interesting.
No, it really is, how did everything change? And I know for me personally, I'm so much more productive at home, not talking to people, because obviously I could talk to people literally 12 hours straight. So
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I prove it. I'm the person who can talk to anybody about anything all day long.
Yes.
Do you really want me in the office, or do you want me like where I can't talk to people?
Right. Where you have to make an effort to make a call to talk to people, or somebody's just walking by your office and suddenly it's time to take a half an hour chat. Yeah. I think most of the people that I know say that they're much more productive at home. Now, there are folks who don't love it, and folks that are, extroverts that are itching to get back in the office and, and see people again. But as far as overall productivity, I think it's really going to be interesting for companies to look back on this and maybe make that shift and realize that a happy workforce at home is just as effective and a whole lot more cost effective for the company. We shall see.
So that's really interesting. I read an article, and if you want, I'll try to find it and send it to you. I was just talking to Terry Sentner, who's been chatting on our chat and who introduced me to you virtually. There's an article where they're starting to do some initial studies on extroversion, and they're looking at virtual extroversion versus physical. So some people like me, I feel like, oh my gosh, I met Wendy. Like, I don't need to be in a room with you. Like, I know you now. I would call you up, right? And
yeah, this is real.
But some people do not get that same needs met out of the virtual experience. And so, is extroversion strictly in physical space, or can you just be a virtual extrovert and get your needs met?
Isn't that interesting? That's an interesting distinction. I have seen that firsthand. My husband is king extrovert. He's the most people person I've ever met in my life. And he's had a really, really difficult time with this. And he's on meetings all day long. I mean, he's on Zoom meetings and he's on calls all day long with people, but that just does not fulfill him. That does not meet his need for being with other humans. So yeah, interesting that they are running studies on that sort of thing, because it's a really very real distinction for a lot of people is, are you there with a human? And that's, I did a talk for the Library of Congress last week, which is how we ultimately got hooked up. And it was really interesting because it was a version of a talk that I've done before, but that I usually do at conventions in front of a live audience, where you have that feedback and, you can tell what your audience is doing, and are they falling asleep, or are they right there with you and they're excited and they have questions, and, and you don't get that at all. Because when you're on a telemeeting, it's basically, okay, here is my slideshow. Boom, I'm going to screen share that. And now you can't see me and I can't see you. And I'm just going to keep talking. And I have no idea if you've wandered off, if you're still there, if you've fallen asleep, if you're playing on your phone. And that's a very strange thing as a presenter to have no idea how it's really going over. You don't get that energy return from a crowd that physically isn't there. So
I just did a PMI Mile High chapter for Project Management Institute last Wednesday, and it was very similar. And I was talking about racy diagrams with swim lanes, which, is riveting at any given time.
Absolutely.
And like, I'm sure people are just making dinner and just getting their PDUs.
Exactly. Yeah. Wandering off. Yeah. And you don't know, but they might be hanging on every word. You just can't tell. So yeah, that is challenging. I definitely cannot wait until the day when we can have live Comic Cons again and sci-fi fantasy cons again, because that's when I go out and meet with fans and sign books and yeah, those are just the most wonderful days to really connect live with the audience. The very, very best thing that happens at those cons, because I live in Cincinnati, I'm always at Cincy Comic Expo, and there are kids. I've been doing it for years now, and I've had a Horizon book come out every year for the past 5 years, and there are kids that will come up and come running to the booth and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. I saved my birthday money because I want to buy the next book in the series." And that's like my heart, And I look at those parents and I'm like, you are doing a really, really, really good job, because all the toys, all the comics, all the stuff here that this kid could buy, and this kid came running up to buy a book. So good on you, parents of Cincinnati. That's what melts my heart.
I don't know, like, we've diverged so far and now we've come back to your books. I am so excited. We're going to have to sign off now. Is there any last messaging that you want to get out before we shift to the next author?
Well, I want to thank you so much for having me. It has been a delight to be here. For anybody that is watching, just so you are aware, there is a prequel short story to the Horizon series. It is called Horizon Alpha Highwire. It is free today on Amazon. So if you want to have a little taste of what the Horizon series is like, you can jump on Amazon and download Highwire for free. And hopefully you will love it, and it will lead you into the series, because I think you and people in your family, I think can really enjoy it. So yeah, free all day today. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has just been a delight.
Well, I'll definitely be downloading it as soon as 8 o'clock reaches. And I will tell you that the best thing about running an author's book festival is all the different free books that you get. So it's definitely one of my very, very favorite things. Wendy, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate you. Love your energy, and just really love the genre that you're writing in. And hopefully we can get more girls reading sci-fi as well.
Amen to that. Thanks so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Thank you.